Good morning. You are watching DeProgram with Ted Rall and Jamarl Thomas. It is Monday, June 15th, 2026. I'm Ted Rall. That's Jamarl Thomas. I'd like to be the first to congratulate the Islamic Republic of Iran on their defeat of the United States, codified yesterday. We will, of course, be making that our lead story today. Coming up at 10 o'clock, TMI show with Manila Tian and myself, a Q&A show with the two of us at 12 noon. So it's a full morning. We should get right to it. If you have questions, please like, follow, and share. Please put those questions into the live chat. Producer Robbie West will pick those questions and put them up. If they're super chats and they're Rumble rants, they will go right up automatically. So I think that's about it. What else are we talking about today? Oh, yeah. We've got Mitch McConnell is in hospital. He's 84, not doing well. So could that affect the balance of the U.S. Senate? I think it could. The Israelis are absolutely furious about the ceasefire agreement that was struck yesterday that will be signed in Geneva this coming Friday. And of course, yesterday there was the crazy UFC Trumpathon on the front lawn of the White House, which I will admit I did not watch. I will watch probably later today on my phone, but maybe others can chime in on that. Great Britain became the latest English-speaking former current Commonwealth country, obviously the ultimate Commonwealth country, to joining Australia, Canada, and also Brazil and Indonesia to ban social media for people under the age of 16. So, all right, JT, we got to talk about Iran first. The news broke yesterday. Trump got the 80th birthday present that he really wanted. He wanted a ceasefire deal with Iran, and he got one. It looked like it was going to be it looks like the 40th time was the charm. The Iranians finally confirmed the terms, and from what we know currently, this is very much along the lines of what we discussed here over the past few weeks. But you go to the status quo antebellum, right? So basically, what did Trump get out of this war? As the song goes, absolutely nothing, right? It's like, so we go back. The only difference between now and 4 months ago is that a lot of Iranians and some Americans have died. But otherwise, nothing's really changed. Oh, and it costs a lot to refuel your car. But basically, Iran is agreeing not to develop nuclear weapons, but they get to keep their enrichment program. The details of that to be worked out later in the next 60 days. This is basically an agreement to iron out the details. The Iranians are going to get $24 billion of their frozen funds back. The weaseling, to me, says it's going to happen sooner rather than later. In terms of the weaseling and in the announcements of how this is being described by Trump. They are also, this is the big one for me, and I would imagine probably for you too, is that Lebanon is rolled into the deal. So basically, the U.S., to quote my friend Jamarl Thomas, is ordered to rein in its dog Israel and say, you can't attack Lebanon, you can't attack Hezbollah anymore. That's off the table. And of course, that puts Bibi Netanyahu in a very difficult predicament. All right, what do you think about all this?
I don't want to be dour. I don't want to be dour.
Hour away. I mean, this could. The Israelis can easily scuttle this deal.
Bombed Beirut last night.
Right.
They bombed Beirut last night.
Right.
Beirut was supposed to be off the table. Look, from my point of view, the U.S. are run by psychopaths. They are going to test Iran all the way through in order to, complete the objective of decapitating the state, which is what they want to do, and destroy the country. But that doesn't mean, in the way that people are looking at it, that these are individual actions. These are pushes to do this, if that makes sense. Syria, for example, and again, I don't mean to be obviously Iran won the war. Let's start there. Mm-hmm. Before being dour.
That's the part that's the headline here, right?
That's the headline.
Iran won, the U.S. admitted it.
Right. And so now we need to go into details.
Right.
And just to be clear on why they won, as you pointed out, the objective of the U.S. and Israel was to destroy the state. When the state preserves itself,
Unconditional surrender, regime change. Those were the
right,
words.
and none of that happened. You
No.
didn't get your hands on the uranium. You didn't destroy the state of Iran. The state of Iran still is intact. They still
Government's
control their
stronger.
own uranium.
The Islamic
And
Republic is stronger than ever.
they're stronger than ever, and they control the Strait of Hormuz, which is something that wasn't even in the conversation before this took place, right?
Right.
Meaning that the objectives that Trump wanted failed. They're getting back $24 billion. Some of that money has already been transferred to them, apparently, through Qatar and through some of these other elements. Meaning these are things that weren't even up for discussion before Donald Trump initiated this war of aggression against Iran. So all of that needs to be put into the mix immediately.
Mhm.
Now, the super interesting part is control your dog. Can the U.S. control its dog? The dog keeps peeing on the lawn. Can you control your dog?
It's a very
Now,
bad dog.
it's a bad dog. It's a bad dog. Now, the rub and the question is the U.S. controlling that dog and using that dog to test Iran's resolve? So basically, okay, you guys come to a deal. Fair enough, you come to a deal. Bam, we hit Lebanon. How serious are you about attending to this deal and attending to, let's say, violations of this deal? Now, for the longest time, we were pretending that there's been a ceasefire in Lebanon, where the south of Lebanon has just been open for Israelis' death machines. The rub is Hezbollah has been chewing through the Israeli military to the degree where Israelis have been complaining that they have these flying killer robots that's killing our soldiers as we're invading and killing people in the country. We don't like the fact that they're flying killer robots. That
What's with this fighting back shit? That's not allowed.
Yeah, I know, right? Like, we're supposed to have air superiority. What is this stuff of them bombing our tanks and bombing our people? Which is wild when you think about it, right? But I guess my point is, southern Lebanon has been open season, whereas Beirut ended up being the red line.
Mhm.
Well, that red line was crossed last night. What does it mean if you sign a deal? Does it mean that Israel's bombing of Beirut gets a free pass? Because we know what's going to happen. America's going to be like, we don't see anything. We don't notice anything. Okay, is America going to take that perspective if Iran hits Israel for violating Beirut? That's like, all of these are fascinating questions to me that I don't have answers to. And so and by the way, Iran's leverage, I would argue, is at its max now, not later. Meaning you have the U.S. in a situation where in August, we're going to run dry on oil and gas, especially from August to September. Those are going to be the months of the highest, let's say, chance of running empty, which means that is Iran's strongest position, not later.
Well,
Meaning you're taking
the strait's supposed to reopen immediately, right?
Which is a problem, which it shouldn't. Meaning, I don't know what's going on in Iran. It's very possible that Iran is looking at this saying, okay, our position is weaker than what people think it is, in which case we're going to accept this deal. We're going to rebuild. We're going to get the money. We're going to do all that stuff, even though we know that the U.S. can't be trusted in the situation. Or is it they're just making a bad play where you have the U.S. by the balls because we will run out of oil. And the entire point of the war was an economic war against the U.S. Okay, now you're at your height because the U.S. will run out of oil. Donald Trump could only jawbone for so long. Donald Trump could only use the energy reserves of the U.S. for so long. Do you keep your foot on the throat, or do you let up for a deal for concessions from the U.S. when you know most likely Trump has his fingers behind his back and that Israel most likely would not abide by the deal? All of these are questions that I don't have answers for.
Well, I mean, so my response to that, and I have some tweaks and differences with you, but before I say that, I do want to echo, nobody knows anything. This is a pure speculation, but that's our job here. That's what we do. Right. So yeah, I mean, so I could be wrong. My feeling is that something fundamental has changed, and that what we saw yesterday with the Israeli attack on Beirut was a last gasp of a U.S. Israeli relationship that will never be the same again. It is true that the Iranians can reopen the strait, and it alleviates the pressure on America and the West and the global economy for the time being. But the fact is, once the whole world knows what the Iranians can do anytime they want, and no one wants them to do it again, right?
Mhm.
So everyone wants to put this in the rearview mirror, not least of whom is Donald Trump, looking at some pretty disastrous results in the midterm elections. And we'll be talking about that, about Mitch McConnell and all that a little bit later. But I think this is a big fucking deal. And I think it's like, Iran can definitely say this is a victory. I think, it's also a victory for those of us who are really hoping to see the U.S. start to kick Israel to the curb. Netanyahu, we have to talk about Netanyahu in this context because he's the guy who can fuck up this deal, right? But can he really? I mean, so let's just say that, so Netanyahu is, of course, between a rock and a hard place. He's running for re-election this fall. Israeli public opinion from, right to far right, which is all they have, is, keep attacking, bomb, kill, greater Israel. We all know that. It's like Zionism on acid. They're going to keep, they want to keep, that's how you get reelected. But if he yields to that impulse and decides to start shit up in Lebanon again, then that puts Donald Trump in a position where he is right back where he started, and all of the best laid efforts of himself, Marco Rubio, the Qataris, the Pakistanis, and so on, all disappears, and he's right back in the shitter. So he's then going to have to decide, what do I care about more, Bibi Netanyahu or the deal that I struck? I believe that he will choose the deal, and he will basically have to go to the Iranians and say, listen, it's not my dog anymore. The dog is off the leash, and I'm not giving the dog any more food. I'm not sending any more money to them. Fuck them. And because it's the only thing the Iranians can trust. It's the only way. If Beirut gets bombed, if a Hezbollah official gets blown up again, Trump has to be able to call and credibly say, listen, that wasn't me, and that was without my approval. He has to be able to do that. And otherwise, he's right back where he started. Right now, he has gotten the least bad option out of this. He's doing what you and I thought he needed to do. It's not good. It's not fun, but he's basically doing a little international diplomatic chemotherapy here. He got it. He's taking care of it. Congratulations, Mr. President. In all seriousness, you deserve credit when you do the right thing, and especially when it hurts. And that's what you've done. Now he's got to stay the course. So I think the U.S. Israeli relationship is, and you can tell, like, the politicians of all stripes in Israel, from right to far right, are howling. Every news outlet except Haaretz, which is the only liberal outlet in Israel, are howling. Basically, the talk among the far right Zionists is, well, we can do it without the United States. That's where we are, and that's where, frankly, I think we should want to be. That's, again, congratulations, Mr. President, and happy 80th birthday. I think I think this is good news. It could get, but you're right. I mean, the dourness, to quote my many Russian friends, any bad situation can always get worse, and this is one of them. I just don't. I could be looking back, like, by Friday and being like, what the fuck was I thinking? But right now,
that's how I'm looking back Friday saying, what the fuck were you thinking? I don't mean that poorly. Let me ask you this. Has there been any time that the U.S. has done that? Meaning, let's say when the U.S. claimed that there was a ceasefire in Gaza, when the U.S. claimed there was a ceasefire in Lebanon, and Israel continuously broke any agreement that was reached when they were attacking Lebanon, and the U.S. turned a blind eye towards it. Why would that be different here? And by the way, I'm asking that in the context of Iran opening the strait, which releases the pressure that was on the U.S. to attend to the deal in the first place?
Um, I missed a little bit of that.
Oh, you're fine. I asked, at what point has the U.S. attended, or let's say honestly, engaged ceasefires? In fact, Israel even went with the idea that they were going to have the quote Lebanese model, which meant that we pretend as if there's a ceasefire while we're attacking Lebanon, with the United States turning a blind eye to the fact that Israel is violating the ceasefire. Meaning, anytime Hamas or anytime Hezbollah responded, the U.S. will come out and say, we condemn the attacks by Hamas and Hezbollah, despite the fact that Israel was the one that was remorselessly violating the agreements. I'm saying we have played that role continuously. We would ignore Israeli attacks. We would bring up Hezbollah and Gaza attacks. Why would that be different here?
Well, I mean, because we were still in bed with Israel to an extent that we are no longer. It's a different thing. I mean, this is kind of like, well, you were, why did you used to go to dinner with your ex-wife? Because you were married. Why don't you go to dinner with your ex-wife? Because you're divorced.
Yeah, but if I see you hanging out,
this is a trial separation.
If I see you hanging out with your ex-wife at the gym,
Mhm.
and I see you hanging out with your ex-wife at the movies, and I see you hanging out with your ex-wife, I don't know, at the gas station, I'm going to assume you're still with your ex-wife, even if you're telling me otherwise. Like, meaning, even if you're saying, I'm not with that chick. Dude, don't act like the girl with the skinny legs is not yours. She obviously is. I'm saying that there's no, even from the way that the U.S. talks about it, they don't talk about it like there's a break in the relationship. There may be a disagreement on it.
I have to push back hard on that. I mean, yeah, they do. I mean, so about a week or two ago, remember, Donald Trump confirmed that he had called Bibi to his face fucking crazy. And then a couple of days ago, he did the same thing where he basically told, he used obscenities to describe what he had told Bibi Netanyahu, like to fucking cut it out. I thought the exact words. But basically, so twice in a couple of weeks, he's basically publicly confirmed that there's a major difference in opinion between him and the Israelis
on a specific issue, not
which was what? Bombing Lebanon.
And by the way, just to be very clear, when Trump was asked, he even pointed out, we have no separation with Israel. Like, meaning we are on good terms.
Not the second time. And I think I think the Israelis are. Look, here's the thing. I think the Iranians are fucking up in one way. They should demand a complete withdrawal of Israeli forces from Lebanon. Including south of the Litani River, no buffer zones. I mean, honestly, if I were them, I would have also said, like, you pull out of the areas of Syria that you're occupying, and you rein in your settlers on the West Bank. The whole thing. It's a whole thing. Like, we're looking out for our Palestinian brothers.
Iran has the power to do that. I mean, meaning we don't know the limits of their power in this case, which is maybe why they're accepting an agreement in the first place. Like, we're assuming that the reason for one, I disagree with you. I don't think, and I'm not saying this poorly, Donald Trump can say whatever he wants. Trump says a lot of things that tends to be off the reservation. And there does seem to be this plan of putting all of this stuff on Israel as opposed to the U.S. accepting responsibility. The Pathway to Persia, Which Path to Persia, points out this plan in detail. Hey, we're going to use Israel to be the sin eater. We're going to pretend as if Israel has gone rogue, and we're going to put all of this stuff on Israel, despite the fact that Israel is implementing U.S. policy. I am of the mind that that is what's true.
Anymore. Nobody believes that.
True, nobody believes it. But that doesn't mean that that's not still the U.S. playbook. Trump has said that the U.S. and Israel are on the same page. Now, he might have disagreements on issues, meaning the U.S. has an issue from the standpoint of energy and gas and fuel prices spiraling to infinity that Israel may not necessarily care about. So, yeah, they may disagree on that issue. But up to this point, the only thing we have ever seen was Israel do attacks and the U.S. turn a blind eye to those attacks. Let me ask you this. If Israel bombs Beirut after this is signed, let's say they bomb it 2 minutes after it's signed, do you think the U.S. looks the other way? Or do you think the U.S. tries to corral its dog? And if Iran attacks Israel in response, what do you think the U.S. does?
I
Because
think
that's what matters.
I think it corrals its dog, and I think and I don't think it does shit to Iran. I think it
Oh, you
lets
mean if Iran hits Israel after the fact?
Israel
You don't
hits.
think the
If
U.S.
Iran hits
responds?
Israel, the U.S. looks the other way. The deal is still on. Trump needs this deal. He has to have. He needs it. He has to have it. That's why I think it's self-interest. It's realpolitik. That's all. It's not because
Yeah,
Trump suddenly like became a peacemonger. He just decided that this is in his best interest because it is.
I think this is a repositioning. I think the U.S. went after Iran, got it wrong, got it massively wrong, and from their point of view, they need to find a different position in order to deal. And so I agree with you that he needs the deal now,
Mm-hmm.
in this specific moment. Give it 60 days. You've given
He
enough.
needs it. I
Yeah.
mean, he would be. I know he's an asshole, but he'd have to be a mega super asshole of the variety we've never seen before to think like, oh well, we now have 60 days of ships that have passed through the Strait of Hormuz. Everything's cool. No, because there's still going to be a major shortfall in global oil supplies for the next. Prices aren't going to return even if everything's cool and
Yeah.
that pace holds. We're not going back to normal until next year, maybe. So.
Look, we pecked away at Syria for over a decade. I
Mhm.
don't believe this is over.
All right. Well, we have some comments to get through, and we can.
And by the way, I hope I'm wrong. I hope you are. God, man, I hope you're right. I hope I can come on this show and be like, you know what? Ted Rall was completely right. I was talking out of my ass.
I don't know. I'm talking out of my ass, even if I turn out to be right. So who knows? Right? I mean, we're. I mean, because we don't really know what's going. I mean, here's the thing. I don't know if Donald Trump knows what he's going to be thinking in 2-3 weeks, but
Okay.
he's very reactive. Okay, John Paul. Let's race through these. Morning, fellas. Ted, did you go to the UFC match? I live in New York, and if I lived in D.C., I still wouldn't have gone. Did you hear any of the planes? The fighter jets going over the White House and stuff.
Oh, I live in Richmond. I don't
Oh,
live in
right,
DC.
right, right. Never mind. I always think that you're like, yeah, like Manila, living
I used to live in DC. I mean, I lived there
hours
for the
away.
show. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So no, I did not, and I wouldn't have. I hate crowds anyway. Fu so thanks for the dollar. So it looks like the PSYOP movie Disclosure Day is a flop. Has Spielberg lost his game? I don't know.
PSYOP. I don't know.
It got good reviews.
To be honest, I haven't watched it.
Me neither.
I haven't watched it.
I'm curious
So
about it. I mean,
it,
yeah.
it came out at the exact same time as Donald Trump was putting out the third tranche of UFO files and UFO leaks. There's a belief that these things are dovetailing with one another, where you have a media arm that is putting out a narrative and a point of view, and you have the political space that is putting out data and information simultaneously, so that both of these things are dovetailing, that you're trying to explain something to the public before the government puts out more and more information to get the public entranced with a certain point of view. Look, as I keep pointing out, be careful what you wish for. The reality of it is, yes, I want this stuff to come out. I've wanted this stuff to come out a long time, but your government believes in narratives. Truth is different. Be careful what the narrative ends up being. That's the part that concerns me more than anything else, if I'm being honest.
Couldn't agree more. Listen, we have an amazingly generous Sneaker Dad donation of $100. It really does mean a lot. Thank you so much, Sneaker Dad.
Thank you.
And Sneaker Dad's comment is Iran should push to have Israel sign the nuclear non-proliferation treaty.
Yes.
I was saying that on Twitter
Yes.
over the weekend, and it went. My post went a little viral. Tens of thousands of views and thousands of comments, mostly from angry Zionists who were basically calling me some version of retard. And but there were many likes as well. And there was no one who could argue. Basically what I had said is that Israel should be forced to give up its nuclear arsenal as well as long-range missiles. If Iran can't have them, why should Israel have them? I mean, no country has attacked its neighbors more than Israel has. So, they're a dangerous country. And, the only response was, well, they haven't nuked anyone yet. That's a small comfort. Yeah. I mean, we know it's crossed their minds from the Samson option stuff. The mere fact that it's crossed their minds is kind of like reason why they shouldn't be allowed to have it, really. But what do you think? I mean,
I agree with you. I don't even know why it's a question. And in fact, the angry Zionists are responding is more of an incentive to get rid of them, not less, right? This is like the Rick and Morty thing. It's like your condemnation fills me with the pride that of a thousand burning suns. It's kind of like that. I I define myself by my enemies. If you guys are against it, then that is more of a reason to be for it. The idea that we're supposed to be overly concerned about Iran's quote unquote ability to get nukes, but we're supposed to turn a blind eye to Israel actually having nukes is outrageous. The US government knows they have nukes. The US government is pretending like they don't know that they have nukes when everybody and their mama knows it's the most open secret on the planet. Why should they have them?
They,
Why should they have them? They're
they
untrustworthy as a country. I don't even think they should exist as a country, let alone have nukes.
by the way, I always love the idea that, like, calling for the state of Israel, according to these Zionists, is the same as calling for the genocide of the Israeli Jews who live there. It's like lots of nation state. Getting rid of a nation state does not mean getting rid of the people who live in the borders of that nation state.
Exactly.
They're not the same thing at all. And it's like,
Those are different things.
of course, unless you really believe that the only thing that's keeping them alive is the existence of that nation state, which I think is a fantasy. It's just not true. It's
Agreed.
paranoia.
Israel at some point has to act like a normal state.
Mhm.
And this idea where we don't define our borders, we can attack our neighbors. We're trying to create greater Jerusalem or greater Israel. And for that, we need to destroy Jordan, parts of Egypt, et cetera, et cetera. This is a fantasy.
An apartheid regime. I mean, it's the only one on the planet.
This is a fantasy that needs to be popped. And that fantasy doesn't pop until the U.S. abandons Israel. When the U.S. either collapses or cuts. Okay.
Cannot happen a second too soon.
Yeah.
Montana native. I think it's either that or it's mountain native. Thanks for the $5. How about them Knicks, Ted? Yeah, it's I don't follow basketball, but and all I can say is I'm glad that I wasn't on the streets of New York that evening. Holy shit, the chaos.
The Knicks won. Did they win or lose?
The Knicks won. Yeah, they won Game 5. The city erupted in festivities and a lot of violence. Someone was stabbed. There were some shootings. 3 school buses, of all things, were set on fire. Yeah, there was rioting, basically. Celebratory riots. It's like, guys, this isn't soccer. This is basketball. What are you doing?
No, I part of me likes the ruckus. I don't want them burning school buses and stuff like that, but part of me finds that, I don't know. It's like we won, and now we're going to trash New York to get across.
Oh, it was bad. There's video online of a viral video of the driver of one of the school buses who was like a young black man, and he was crying, and he was trying to protect his bus, and he said, "That's going to come out of my paycheck. That's going to come out of my paycheck," which obviously is not true. But still, he was really upset. Like, he was asking people not to do that. And
obviously they shouldn't burn school buses.
No, burn a bank.
Yeah. Why do you think they never do stuff like they attack poor neighborhoods, which is always wild to me.
Yeah, that's right. It's like it's there's the Dead Kennedys song called Riot, and it's like, people burn down their own neighborhoods instead of going into the enclaves of the wealthy individuals and corporations who are really oppressing them. Yeah.
You're going to do it. I mean, if you're going to protest.
Yeah.
Don't burn down shit nobody cares about.
Yeah. Hurt the people and things that have it coming,
Yes.
I don't. It's very strange to me. Let's see here. This is hilarious. Anamando Raki. Some say this dog has rabies, and some say rabbis. Mr. Ali, funny thing is, the people in the U.S. government, if asked, would say they don't trust the U.S. government, but they expect foreign countries to trust it. God, that's true. That's so good.
Yeah,
it's true. I mean, if you were being audited by the IRS, you probably wouldn't have a very good feeling about it, that you were going to be treated fairly. If you get pulled over by the police you're probably not, looking forward to what's about to ensue when the cop
Right.
walks over to your window. And yet, we're like, we expect other countries to think like, oh, it's the U.S. government. They could, their word is their bond. I mean, like what?
Yeah, which was, I don't
Uh,
know if it was true at one point. It's damn sure not true now.
March 1661 brings up an interesting side point. Methinks China whispered in Iran's ear.
Why? I don't think so. Because I think, look, Iran has, over the course of this, has prized its independence. And by
Mhm.
the way, even from the standpoint of a deal with Russia for security agreements, they didn't even do that because
No,
their thing was our independence matters that much to us. I don't know if China whispered in their ear. China whispered in their ear to say what?
no. I mean, I could see China whisper. I think China stood aside. And when your enemies are fucking up, that's Napoleon, right?
Let them.
Stand aside and let them do it. I think that's all that's happening here. The Chinese certainly were like, they would have been happy to broker a peace deal, and they're still waiting for their chance to do that. But I think they were not seriously involved here.
There needs to be guarantors to this deal, though. I mean,
Dual,
that's the,
sorry,
and that's a risk. That's a
dual.
risk. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I was going to do a comment. Sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry. There's a little bit of a
Oh
lag.
no, you're fine. I was just saying, if you're going to really make a deal, on some level, you may need guarantors. The only people who will be guarantors will be China and Russia. But that is guarantors in the context of Israel, who I don't trust. Meaning, if you're talking about a way to create a third world war condition, whew, right there, right
I
there.
don't trust them either. I mean, look, honestly, I've got to think that there is a substantially higher than 0% chance that conversations about like in Tel Aviv like are occurring along the lines of maybe we should nuke Tehran. You know, this would be like
Oh
if we
man.
can't count on the Americans anymore. What's the point of this nuclear arsenal? This is what it's for. It's the only, what are the Americans going to do? Nuke us? No, they'll cut us off. They'll isolate us. That's going to happen anyway. Maybe we should just go ahead and do that.
But see, I don't know how many countries will believe that Israel did that on their own.
Well, I
As
mean,
you point out, that most people or most countries know that Israeli actions in creating the greater Israel is directly related to America. Even the genocide was directly related to America, considering we were giving them billions of dollars to continue to do it, looking the other way and defending them as they did it.
yeah,
If
Biden's
they turn
bear
around and
hug
nuke,
a baby, right?
yeah, but if they turn around and nuke Tehran, I don't think people are going to believe that they did this without the belief or without the consent of the U.S. I'll give you an example. When they bombed Beirut, the reporting was that they asked the United States whether it was okay to do so, and they did it. I'm trying to point out that I don't think these things are completely discombobulated from one another. And I don't know how many people would believe that Israel would go so far as to nuke Tehran without the United States giving its tacit consent.
I mean, look, it's a very. I mean, look, obviously that would come up. Yeah, I mean, um, if there's no way to prove a negative. If that happened and the U.S. had nothing to do with it, it'd be very hard for the U.S. to prove they had nothing to do with it.
Exactly.
But I mean,
And
yeah,
everybody would assume.
that's the problem, right? I mean, look, the U.S. could sever its ties to Israel for eternity and never return their calls again, and still, we're going to be saddled with the legacy of that relationship over the
Yeah.
past 75 years, right? That's going to be it's going to keep coming up and fucking us up. The interest is going to keep coming due on this note, right? It's a problem. I mean, I take that point completely. Um, Costa Constantinou. Ted, loved your honest description of where we currently stand, but the dog will never be on its leash as it's been chomping on the bit to bite Lebanon at any opportunity and will not stop now. I'm not arguing that point. It may not stop now, but it will stop if it thinks that stopping will keep that flow of arms and money coming in from the United States. You know. Oh, weird.
Okay. There we go. That's
There-
the rub, though. Will will the U.S. tell Israel, you're no longer getting arms, you're no longer getting diplomatic protection, you're no longer getting money if you continue to do this,
No more
and you're by yourself when Iran hits you back? If the U.S. does that, I will be back on the show saying Ted Rall was completely right.
I think that Bibi has tested Trump so many times that Trump's now at the point where he's ready to file for divorce.
What's wild about it, I think the issue for Trump, believe it or not, is this idea that people think, especially in MAGA, that Trump is being controlled by Israel. I think Trump bristles at that. I think his hubris and narcissism bristles at disbelief that Bibi somehow controls him, and that if it comes out where Bibi says that he can control Trump or that Trump is subordinate to Israel, I think that he bristles at that stuff.
I agree. I think he bristles. Yeah. It's like you're making me look like a puss.
Yes.
And
making it look like a pussy. Yes.
I mean that is true. There's no question about that.
And by the way, I don't want to say pussy as a derogative term from the standpoint of vaginas. They're very strong.
By the way, the term does not come from the vagina. It comes from pussy. Comes from the word pusillanimous.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nobody knows that, right? I didn't even know that.
Yeah, nobody knows that. I looked it up like a year ago because some feminist was giving me a hard time about using that word. And I was like, I'm pretty sure it's not from that. And it's not. So feel free to use the P word as much as you want. It does not derive from the vag.
Now that I know, I would be like, look, man, I'm not being derogatory.
It's not a sexist term. It just isn't. Yeah.
I used to think we had a woman on the show. How would she regard some of the stuff? I used to have Manila as my co-host, obviously, and we used to.
I can ask Manila. Although Manila is like she's an unusual woman. She does not give a shit like that. Yeah. She's not woke.
She's like talking to a guy.
Robbie, what would Manila say about this? I say she would not care. Robbie, you are muted.
No, Manila would not care one bit and frankly, if some woman got offended because someone used the word pussy, she would tell them to stop being pussies.
By the way, can we ever get Manila on the show as a third person? I would love to have her on the show.
Yeah. All right.
I would love to have Manila.
Only I was going to talk to her in 21 minutes. Okay. All right.
God, you don't like me, JT? Screw you.
No, you're fine, Robbie. I just meant to have feminine energy on the show. Unless you just want to, you come in a dress one day and pretend. But
listen, I could be a tranny. Come in with a dress. I bet you would like that.
It's like I'm a woman.
Yeah, you get something out.
Regard me as a woman. God damn it!
Out of that atomic regulatory. Who was that like trans person with the
bald dude?
Who was stealing?
I know you're talking about the one that got arrested for stealing clothes at the airport.
Out of the luggage.
Yeah, he kept stealing clothes. I know what you're talking about.
He worked for Biden, right?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, he did.
Wow.
Yeah, he kept huge guy, bald as the day is outdoors, and dresses.
He might be the ugliest American. Like out of 330 million people, he might be the most ugly one.
Stephen Miller. Sorry, he does not
hot by comparison.
I don't think so. I mean, could you imagine? Listen, if you put Stephen Miller in a dress, they look like brothers.
Well, Stephen Miller is totally like, you expect him to be like, the precious.
Yeah, Ray, yeah, thank you. Sam Britton was that dude's
name.
Oh,
yeah, that's his name.
Yeah. Woo.
Yep. Sam.
Ted, should I drop this on JT, what we were talking about before?
Yeah, drop it, do it.
So, you'll find this hard to believe, JT, but I offended someone. I offended
someone.
I did. I offended a Christian Zionist, and he wants to come onto the show, and he wants to debate us, and specifically yours truly, about how my replacement theology is heresy from a Christian standpoint. And if the viewers are all about it, if you're all about it, I would like to extend this guy an invitation for the sole purpose of putting him on a cross publicly for the whole world to see.
Fair enough. I mean, it's up to y'all on this one. I'm down for whatever everybody else goes with.
We're not going to do an hour. We'll do like 15 minutes. But
no, I mean, it would be short and it'll be easy because, well, Zionism is just a retarded thing to believe in anyway. So
It is retarded.
it'd be like kicking a wet dog.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the whole Hasbara thing, right? It's like, you know what Hasbara is, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, yes.
I mean, basically all it's about is just flooding. It's verbal abuse. It's literally like, we will flood you with, just garbage words over and over and over and over and over until you just get tired and you go away. It's not about engaging or educating or trying to move the needle forward or having any kind of constructive debate or convincing you of anything. It's just it's verbal bullying. And
it's an argument to show that there's an argument, if that makes sense. It's a beat your wife argument of sorts. It's like there's some, like, for example, when we're having a conversation, we're trying to come to some kind of agreement, or at the very least to understand where people are coming from. Right. That's not about that. That's about, we have a political objective in order to steal as much territory as possible, and we need people out there, soldiers, linguistic, verbal soldiers, in order to try to justify it. We're not trying to have an agreement of sorts. We're trying to project a point of view. That's all. A brutal, bashing point of view of why it's okay for us to steal this land and territory. That's all it is. It's not about agreement. It's not about understanding. It's not about any of that stuff.
Well, I'm pretty sure that thou shalt not steal is one of the commandments, and also thou shalt not kill is one of the commandments. So if you're doing both of those things, odds are you're probably not doing this the right way.
But it's not stealing if you take someone's stuff that God promised you.
Yep. Yeah, God gave it to you.
Yeah.
Which God? Rim fan? Sorry, I don't worship that dude. Oh, and by the way, JT,
that's the argument, right? God gave us this.
Yeah. By the way, JT, you're 100% right. Ted, I love you, brother. You are so wrong. That dog is not going to behave.
We'll see. All right, I always like being in the minority. The dog is going to behave. All right,
the dog owns Congress.
But JT's always had the point of view, and I agree with him, that the U.S. controls Israel. It's not the other way around.
Yeah. But no, absolutely not. And listen, JT, no, this might play to your case, because I solely believe that Israel calls the shots and that they own Trump, they own Congress. And if you're a narcissist like Trump, that's got to burn his biscuits. I agree with you. The thing is, though, Trump's not the one in charge. So who cares what he thinks? It's not about him. It's about who controls the Uniparty. The Uniparty is controlled by the Jewish lobby. Let's be honest here. Let's call it what it is.
All right, guys, we have other stuff to talk about. Otherwise, I would be asking you is, how do you explain this current deal? But all right, we got an ad to do. We haven't done a lot of ads lately, so I am going to go ahead and take this one for Rumble Wallet. We hear a lot about crypto, but here's the part most people miss. Crypto was created so you could actually own and control your own money. After the 2008 financial crisis, Bitcoin was designed as an alternative to banks. So instead of a bank holding your money, delaying transfers, or limiting access, you're in control. And if you've ever had to wait for a transfer to clear, you felt that problem. Now, fast forward to today. Everyone's heard of crypto, but getting started still feels complicated. That's exactly why we use Rumble Wallet, and we do. You can donate to our Rumble Wallet and pay through Bitcoin. It takes all that complexity and makes it simple. Choose what you want: Bitcoin, dollar-backed stable coins, or even digital gold backed by real gold. No complicated setup. It connects with MoonPay so that you can use your credit card, debit card, or bank and be up and running in minutes. Once you're set up, you can even support your favorite Rumble creators like us directly. So do this now. Scan the QR code or click the link in the description and download Rumble Wallet. From there, you can set up your wallet, tap buy, and you're in the game. In just a few minutes, you can go from hearing about crypto to actually owning some.
Can I bring up a comment that somebody made?
Please.
All right. I think this is Galaski. Stop talking about trans people. If you guys have zero education on them, I would never support your show monetarily, because every week you throw the word tranny around. How disappointing. Okay, for one, we don't throw that word around. The only time I've ever heard it being used was when Robbie just used it, unless it happened before me. I am not a fan of the word tranny. I am not also a word police, though. So I'm not going to police Robbie on this. I kind of want people to be able to make their case. I don't think you would find any greater defenders of the trans community than Ted and I, in this case, meaning from laws, from commentary coming from the president, all of that stuff. by the same token, I do think this stuff has gone too far. Like, the civil rights movement won resoundingly. And I think they won so much that people looked around and thought, hey, what other space can we take? And I think they kept going to the left. And I think this stuff has gone too far. And I say this from the standpoint of somebody who is a firm defender of LGBTQ and whatever other alphabets you want to add to it. Yeah, I don't know. I understand where you're coming from with that comment. I am not going to police speech because I don't, under normal circumstances, I think we've gone too far in this policing of speech. But you guys can have your own takes on this.
I have literally absolutely nothing to add to that. I totally agree. I mean, yeah, we've gone too far, and totally, that's right. Robbie, you're the offender here. So, the floor is yours.
I will say what I want to say, and if you don't like it, that's your problem, not mine.
And I'm not going to police your speech, Robbie. I think you can say, like, have I ever once asked you ever to censor yourself, self-censor, control what you say, blah blah blah, in any respect whatsoever?
No, because the thing is, once you start policing speech, you start trying to police thought, because you can't have one without the other. And if you don't like someone's opinion, or if you like someone's idea, or if you think that someone has a bad idea, then you don't censor them. You bring an idea with evidence to change that person's mind. Censorship does not do that. Censorship just means that you're weak and that you're stupid. So if you want to change my mind about it, then censorship is not the way to do it. And to Ted's point, what you do in your house, I don't care about. Who you sleep with, I don't care about. What you do in the privacy of your home, I don't care about. But if you start demanding with a bayonet point, using the power of the state, that I must accept what you consider reality whenever you can't even accept yourself for who and what you are, you're never going to win that on me. So, yeah. And also, I am a fundamentalist Christian. Christianity says it is wrong. I will stand on that. And again, if that offends you, well, I'm sorry to hurt your feelings. No, that's a lie. I'm not sorry to hurt your feelings, like, at all.
Look, I think one of the biggest problems that we have in American politics, and that we don't talk to each other and we don't know each other, right? So, the kinds of people who were really excited by yesterday's cage match are people that most of my friends never meet, don't know, can't relate to, couldn't relate to. And so forget about like having any common ground. They literally would just take offense if they overheard them or whatever in some of the rhetoric that they use, and vice versa, right? Like a lot of those people, they don't really know, people like me, and they're literally like, oh, you loved Joe Biden, and I'm like, no, I didn't love Joe Biden. You don't. We need to know each other as Americans, and let me just say, if the baseline rule for getting to know each other and talk to each other is that, is when we start to say to each other, well, you can be 98% yourself, but you can't be 100% yourself around me. Well, you got nothing. I mean, people have to be able to be completely open. Otherwise, you have no political dialogue. And being politically open, being totally open, means you're going to say and do things that other people are going to find offensive. It's just the nature of things. And so, I don't like the word tranny. I don't use it. But the thing is, I don't also take offense at Robbie using it. Look, people are entitled to take offense at anything they want, but it's kind of like, I think it's important for Robbie and me and Jamarl and all of us to just be ourselves and be real. And that's something that we strive for here. And so, you guys listen to it and you can watch it and decide what you like and what you don't like. And if you don't want to support the show, obviously you don't have to. And we'll miss you, and we're sorry, but we're not sorry enough to censor ourselves or our colleagues. We're not.
Yeah. I mean,
well, at the end of the day, it's a distraction. Listen, a dude in a dress has never hurt me. All right. I think they're weird. I think they're kind of crazy, maybe a bit nutty. But a dude in a dress has never hurt me. The people who hurt me are the guys who are in these expensive $10,000 and $20,000 suits who run our country and who use issues like this as a wedge. Because listen, these two guys to my left, conveniently so, are to my left for a reason. But we're able to make calls on the people who are screwing each and every single one of us every single day.
Yeah.
And if the idea that I use the word tranny means that we can't work together, all that does is diminish you.
Fuck that.
Because we're going to disagree on social issues, and that's okay. The bigger issue is what matters.
To be fair,
Yeah,
they don't think it's a distraction.
The fact that I'm an atheist, and he's a devout believer.
Right. And all of us can still engage. Look, I don't think it's a distraction from our point of view, because that's not an issue of our identity. To somebody which is the brilliance of woke stuff in the political space. There's a reason that Clinton and the Democrats went to this as opposed to economic issues, because they know that stuff is prized deeply among the people who are effectively affiliated with it. I guess that my argument against taking offense to it would be, people are always going to have things that they disagree about. And it's one thing to disagree and say, okay, well, this woke stuff I find to be nonsense. We should focus on the issues that matter. That part I agree with. Like, regardless of what you think about the use of the word, do we agree on 75, 80% of items that affect each and every one of us? And if the answer is yes, then obviously I disagree with Robbie's religious take. That doesn't stop me from having a conversation with Robbie. Obviously, I disagree with Robbie about going to the moon. Again, that doesn't stop me from agreeing with Robbie. Hell, I even said I'd vote for him if he ran in a race. Meaning, there is never going to be 100% political allegiance with anybody. Ted and I are disagreeing on the Iran thing right now. It doesn't stop our overall agreement in regards to what we want to take place. I don't know. I'm trying to say it's more complicated than just, well, he said this word, so F that guy.
It is complicated, and we'll continue to hash out the issues of, verbal and identity politics versus class analysis and all that.
Yes.
In future shows, and we hope you'll continue to tune in. We should talk about Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell is sick again. He froze up a few times on camera while giving press conferences. He's been sick a bunch of times. Look, as a 62-year-old man, I hope 84 isn't a death sentence. But he could. He looks very unwell. Has looked unwell for a while. His current term is due to expire at the beginning of next year. And the Senate hangs in the balance. If he were to die, my understanding is that the governor of Kentucky, Andy Beshear, would appoint his replacement. He would appoint a Democrat. That would be effectively a 2-vote shift, right? Because +1, -1. Right. So that would be a pretty dramatic change, right, for the Republicans.
Mitch McConnell is ancient.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm stuck with being an American and being a human being, and being a human being stuck with all of the defects that come along with it. We like our monsters under normal circumstances. So Bush starts a war, but America still, it's like, oh my God, they're giving candy to Bush. This is so adorable for the Obamas to do this. We like our monsters. And I guess I feel the same way about McConnell. McConnell is a monster, just like many of the other ones. Even though as a human being, I feel some kind of way about him being about to drop dead. That being said, putting the emotion to the side, because oftentimes I'm distrustful of emotions, and this is exactly why. The reality of it is McConnell is a monster. McConnell will drop dead at some point, and hopefully Bashir can put in somebody who puts a chill on Trump's behavior. I'm struggling saying this because I don't really believe the Democrats are going to do anything with it. I guess my thing is, does this, or at the very least, hold up what Trump is doing? Does it bring us closer to getting some kind of agreement to stop the war, where the war powers resolution is used, those type of things? But I don't know. My feelings for McConnell is based on familiarity, not because of sympathy or anything like that, if that makes sense.
Agreed. Again, I have nothing to add to that, so it's good. 2 other stories and some more comments. These are very quick, though. Trump wants to link the Save America Act, which is going to require proof of citizenship in order to vote, to renewing the Section 702 of FISA. I'm like, I don't want either one. So
Right.
um,
Right.
I don't understand. I'm like, what's the strategy here? Do you understand it? Because I don't.
I don't get it. I mean, maybe he thinks that Congress wants FISA, and so he can force in the Save America Act. This is not about America, though. Let's be very clear.
No. It's going to force, by the way, all the women, ironically, most of whom are Republicans, who change their names to match their husbands, to change their names, right, to their husbands' names, because they won't be, their birth certificate is what is the main proof of identity that most people, Americans use to prove that they were born in the United States. A lot of Americans don't have passports, so they would have to go to court and prove that they changed their name or get like some kind of writ from the court that said this is who I am. And I mean, it would disenfranchise a lot of Republican women. It's a really, I mean, it's stupid. I really don't have a problem with the Voter ID Act, which would just be like, I'll bring an ID, like a state issued ID. I don't have a problem with that at all. But that's not what the Save America Act is. It's a Prove Your Citizenship Act, which is not the same thing at all.
I don't have a problem with a voter ID, providing that the voter ID is mailed. In Virginia,
it should be free.
Yeah, they mailed the voter IDs to people to ensure that each person had the voter ID, or at the very least, where a person can go and get the voter ID. I don't have an issue with it if it's free.
People should be able to get them too,
Yeah, agreed. So I don't have an issue with that. My issue is with all of this other stuff around it that they're adding to it. It's just...
And let's see. We'll do a few comments. Zoya is love. Majority of socialist countries are traditional. U.S. left has become equivalent to LGBTQ, which is used to pinkwash U.S. imperialism. Zoya is love. Fuck identity politics.
Agreed.
Harry, yeah, I agree. I don't want a swinging Willie around my granddaughters in the locker room. Red lines, people. Zoya's love identity politics is poison to class struggle, toxic individualism, used to divide and conquer. I couldn't agree more about that. Agreed. And last, we have 2 minutes left. The Brits this is moving very quickly to ban social media for people under the age of 16. Canada, Australia, Brazil, Indonesia, and now Great Britain are going to do this very quickly. It's obviously an English Commonwealth thing, first and foremost. But, I mean, is that going to come to the United States, do you think?
Oh, man, I don't know. I mean, if so, it's going to come through Democrats. Mm-hmm. If Democrats take power, who knows? I mean, I don't trust any of these people in the political space. But I think what the problem and what it boils down to is that social media, these countries, including the U.S., had almost an absolute control over narrative. I think that's what it boils down to. And that from the standpoint of social media is a way of destroying any individual narrative that somebody is coming up with, because those narratives immediately get bifurcated and challenged in a way that wasn't necessarily true, let's say 10 years ago or 5 years ago, even, give or take. I think on some level, this is a way to, keep track of people, basically to get identities of individuals once they get online, whereas now many of the people are anonymous. But 2, more to the point, control. I think it's about control. We'll see.
Yeah, even if people are thinking that social media is making them miserable, which I believe is true. I agree that the solution here is one that's going to just increase government control. Everyone, thanks so much for tuning in to DeProgram. We're here at 9 a.m. every morning Eastern time. We'll be back tomorrow. Stay tuned for TMI coming up right now. And in 2 hours from now, JT and Robbie and I will be back with our politically incorrect brand of political commentary at 12 noon Eastern time and 2 hours from now on YouTube and Rumble. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we will see you then. Bye.
Have a good one, guys.